The Chicago Tribune's newsroom buzzed with the frenetic energy of deadlines, clacking keyboards, and the low hum of fluorescent lights. Ava Bennett, a sharp-witted African-American journalist in her early 30s, navigated the chaos with a practiced grace. Her dark skin glowed under the harsh office lighting, contrasting with the pale walls, plastered with front-page clippings. Her tightly coiled hair was pulled back into a neat bun, emphasizing the intensity in her brown eyes as she prepared for the biggest interview of her career. Across from her, in a sleek conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River, sat Daniel Walsh, a white American media tycoon whose name was synonymous with power. His fair skin and neatly trimmed blonde hair framed a face that could charm or silence a room with a glance. At 42, his blue eyes held a glint of ambition, softened only slightly by the tailored navy suit that spoke of wealth and control. He was the kind of man who owned headlines, not just wrote them. Ava adjusted her notepad, her pen poised like a weapon. She'd spent weeks preparing for this interview, digging into Daniel's sprawling media empire, Walsh Media Group, which owned half the city's billboards and a growing chunk of its digital platforms. Her research had uncovered whispers of shady deals, mergers that smelled more of coercion than commerce, but nothing concrete. Today she'd get answers. Mr. Walsh. Ava began, her voice steady, but laced with an edge. Your company's acquisition of Midwest News last year raised eyebrows. Critics say it was less a business deal and more a hostile takeover. Care to comment? Daniel leaned back, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Ava. May I call you Ava? Business is never as clean as the headlines make it. Midwest News was drowning in debt. We offered a lifeline. They took it. Her eyes narrowed, a lifeline with strings. Sources claim you pressured their board by threatening to pull ad revenue from their parent company. That's not a lifeline. That's a chokehold. The room fell silent. Daniel's smile faltered just for a second before he recovered with a chuckle. You don't pull punches, do you? I like that. But you're chasing ghosts. No threats were made, just negotiations. Ava scribbled a note, her pen scratching louder than necessary. Negotiations where you held all the cards. Some call your company's pattern buying out struggling outlets, consolidating control, monopolistic. How do you respond to that? Daniel's fingers drummed lightly on the glass table, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. I respond by saying, competition drives progress. We're not strangling the market. We're shaping it. Stronger outlets mean better stories. Isn't that what you want as a journalist? She met his gaze unflinching. I want the truth, Mr. Walsh, not a press release. He laughed, a deep, genuine sound that filled the room. Fair enough. But truth is a messy thing, Ava. It's not always black and white. The interview stretched on for an hour, Ava's questions cutting deeper each time, probing at the cracks in Daniel's polished facade. She asked about his lobbying efforts, ties to political campaigns, and the sudden closure of a rival outlet after Walsh Media's expansion. Daniel deflected with charm, or countered with vague platitudes each time, but Ava caught the subtle tells: his tightened jaw, and his fingers paused mid-gesture. She was getting under his skin. As the session wrapped, Daniel stood smoothing his suit. You're good at this, Ava. Sharp. Would you like to work for me? I could use someone with your fire. Ava didn't look up from her notes. I don't work for billionaires, Mr. Walsh. I report on them. He raised an eyebrow, unfazed. Call me Daniel. And how about dinner tonight? No business, just conversation. I'm in town for the week. She capped her pen, meeting his eyes with a cool stare. I don't trust billionaires enough to dine with them, Daniel. Thanks for the offer. He looked genuinely surprised momentarily. then nodded with a half-smile your loss. But I'll see you around, Ava Bennett. As he left the glass door swinging shut behind him, Ava felt adrenaline rush. She'd held her own, but something about Daniel Walsh, his confidence, his ease, unsettled her. He was too smooth, too sure of himself. Men like that always had secrets. Back at her desk, Ava sifted through her notes, circling phrases like hostile takeover and ad revenue pressure. The newsroom was quieter now, the afternoon lull settling in. Her editor, Mark Hensley, a grizzled veteran with a penchant for coffee stains on his tie, stopped by her cubicle. "Good work in there," Mark said, leaning against the partition. "You rattled him. That's rare." Ava smirked. "He's slick but not untouchable. I'm digging deeper into Midwest news. Something's off." Mark nodded, but his expression tightened. "Just be careful, Ava. Walsh isn't just a story. He's a machine. You poke too hard, he'll poke back." She shrugged, unfazed. "Let him try." That evening, as Ava packed up to leave, her phone pinged. An anonymous email. No sender name, just a subject line. "Look closer." Attached was a PDF, a financial document detailing a Walsh Media subsidiary funneling money into an offshore account tied to the Midwest news deal. The numbers didn't add up, and the signatures were suspiciously vague. Ava's pulse quickened. This was no ghost. This was a lead. She forwarded the document to her personal email, then deleted the original from her work inbox. Whoever sent this knew how to cover their tracks, and she wasn't about to let it slip through her fingers. As she stepped into the chilly Chicago night, the city's skyline glittering against the dark, Ava felt the story's weight growing. Daniel Walsh wasn't just a tycoon. He was a puzzle, and she was determined to solve him. The next morning, Ava arrived at the Tribune early, her mind racing with questions. Who sent the document? Why now? And how deep did Walsh's secrets go? She spent hours cross-referencing the PDF's details with public records, her desk littered with coffee cups and highlighters. By noon, she'd confirmed the subsidiary's existence, but hit a wall on the offshore account. It was buried too deep for public access. Her phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. "Check the Tribune's archives. 2018. Walsh isn't clean. No signature, no context." Ava's stomach twisted. 2 anonymous tips in 24 hours. Someone was playing her, or Daniel Walsh had enemies closer than she thought. She headed to the archives, a dimly lit basement room stacked with binders and microfiche. After an hour of digging, she found a 2018 article about a failed Walsh Media venture, a digital startup that tanked after allegations of mismanaged funds. The article was light on details, too light, as if someone had pulled strings to bury the story. Ava made a mental note to track down the person who is now retired for more. As she emerged from the archives, Mark caught her in the hallway. "You're still on Walsh?" he asked, his tone wary. "He's hiding something," Ava said, clutching her notebook. "I've got documents, Mark. Real ones." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Ava, you're good, but you're not invincible. Walsh has lawyers who eat careers for breakfast. Pace yourself." She nodded, but her mind was already elsewhere. Back at her desk, she drafted an email to the retired reporter, then pulled up Daniel's public schedule. He was speaking at a media conference tomorrow. Perfect. She'd corner him there, gauge his reaction to the offshore account lead. The conference was held at a sleek hotel in the Loop, all glass and chrome, packed with journalists, execs, and influencers. Ava spotted Daniel on stage, commanding the room with his effortless charisma. His fair skin caught the spotlight, his blonde hair almost glowing under the stage lights. He spoke about the future of media, tossing out buzzwords like disruption and connectivity while the crowd ate it up. Ava waited until the Q&A, then stood, her voice cutting through the murmurs. Mr. Walsh, your company's growth is impressive, but what about accountability? There are rumors of offshore accounts tied to your acquisitions. Any comment? The room hushed. Daniel's smile tightened, his blue eyes locking onto her. Rumors are just that. Ms. Bennett. I'd need specifics to respond. Care to share your source? She held his gaze, her dark eyes unflinching. I'm working on it. You'll hear from me when I do. The crowd murmured, sensing the tension. Daniel recovered quickly, deflecting with a joke about journalists keeping him honest, but Ava saw the flicker of unease in his posture. She'd struck a nerve. After the session, she lingered in the lobby, hoping to catch him. Instead, she overheard a conversation, two suits from Walsh Media, whispering about cleaning up the Midwest mess. One mentioned a name, Sophia Grant. Ava's ears perked up. Sophia was a rival media exec, known for her ruthless ambition. Was she the one leaking dirt on Daniel? That night, Ava sat in her apartment, the city's glow filtering through her window. She typed up her notes, the anonymous document, and Sophia's name circling in her mind. Daniel Walsh was no saint, but someone was orchestrating this takedown. The question was why and how far they'd go. As she shut her laptop, another email pinged. Another anonymous sender. This time, a grainy audio file. Ava hit play, and Daniel's voice filled the room, low and urgent. We bury the loss, no questions asked. Her heart raced. This wasn't just a lead anymore. It was dynamite. The Chicago Tribune newsroom was a battlefield of deadlines and egos. But Ava Bennett thrived in chaos. Her desk, a fortress of organized clutter notebooks, pens, and a half-empty coffee mug, was a testament to her relentless pursuit of truth. She'd barely slept since the anonymous audio file landed in her inbox. Daniel Walsh's voice looping in her mind. We bury the loss. No questions asked. The words were a smoking gun, but without context, they were just smoke. She needed more. Daniel Walsh, meanwhile, was making waves across town. His latest move, a multi-million-dollar grant to fund investigative journalism at the Tribune, had the newsroom buzzing. The announcement came with a glossy press release, touting a commitment to truth in an era of noise. Ava wasn't buying it. A billionaire doesn't throw money at a newspaper out of altruism. There were strings attached. She just had to find them. She spent the morning digging into the grant's fine print, cross-referencing Walsh Media's financials with public records. The numbers were too clean, like a floor mopped after a spill. Her gut told her the grant was a distraction, a way to keep the Tribune on a leash, while Daniel dodged her questions about the offshore account and the Midwest news deal. By noon, Ava was restless. She grabbed her coat and headed for the Loop, where Walsh Media's headquarters loomed, a glass tower that screamed wealth. She'd secured a follow-up interview with Daniel, ostensibly to discuss the grant, but her real goal was to press him on the audio. If he squirmed, she'd know she was onto something. The elevator to the 42nd floor was silent, save for the soft ding as it climbed. Ava smoothed her blazer, mentally rehearsing her questions. She'd play it cool. Let Daniel think she was there for the fluff piece, then hit him with the hard stuff. Daniel's office was a study in power, mahogany desk, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a view that stretched to Lake Michigan. He stood as she entered, his tailored suit, impeccable, his smile disarming. Ava, good to see you again. Coffee, water. Water's fine, she said, settling into a leather chair. She noted the details, a framed photo of Daniel shaking hands with a senator, a stack of financial magazines, and a laptop on his desk. Careless or deliberate. They exchanged pleasantries. Daniel waxing poetic about the grant's potential to empower journalists. Ava nodded her pen, moving across her notepad, but her eyes wandered to the laptop. The screen was dim, but she saw an email window with the subject line, Midwest Cleanup. Her pulse quickened. She needed to know that email. "Mind if I use your restroom?" she asked, standing abruptly. Daniel gestured to a door across the room. "Of course, down the hall." She slipped out, but instead of heading to the restroom, she doubled back, glancing at the laptop. The email was still open, and a single line was visible. "Confirm the transfer is buried. No leaks." Ava's breath caught. She snapped a quick photo with her phone before retreating to the restroom, her heart pounding. She resumed the interview in the office, her voice steady despite the adrenaline. The Grant's generous Daniel. But some might say it's a way to buy influence. Any response to that? He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I'm investing in truth, Ava. If that's influence, it's the kind this city needs. You don't trust me, do you?" She held his gaze. "I trust evidence. And right now, I'm seeing a lot of smoke." Daniel laughed, but it was tighter than before. "You're relentless. I respect that. But you're barking up the wrong tree." The interview ended soon after Daniel's assistant ushering her out with a polite but firm smile. Ava replayed the email in her mind as she rode the elevator down. "Confirm the transfer is buried." It lined up with the audio file, but she needed more dates, names, accounts. She texted her source at the Tribune's financial desk, asking for a deep dive into Walsh Media's recent transactions. Ava's inbox at the newsroom was flooded with reactions to the grant. Colleagues called it a game changer. Skeptics whispered about selling out. Mark, her editor, pulled her aside. "You're stirring a hornet's nest with Walsh. The grant's got the higher-ups starry-eyed. They want a feel-good piece, not a hit job." "This isn't a hit job," Ava said, crossing her arms. "It's journalism. He's hiding something, Mark. I've got an audio of him talking about burying a loss." Mark's eyes widened. "You've got what, Ava? You can't just sit on that. If it's real, we need to verify it. If it's fake, you're walking into a trap." "I'm verifying it," she said. "But I need time." He sighed, rubbing his neck. "You've got a week. After that, the brass will want your story on the grant, not Walsh's dirty laundry." Ava nodded, but her mind was already elsewhere. She spent the afternoon chasing leads, calling sources, and scouring financial databases. By evening, she had a partial picture. The offshore account from the anonymous document was linked to a shell company in the Caymans, and Walsh Media's name appeared in the fine print. It wasn't proof, but it was close. That night, another anonymous email arrived. No subject, just an audio file. Ava hesitated, then hit play. Daniel's voice again this time, with another man's discussing a loss in the Midwest news deal. "We can't let this hit the books," Daniel said. "Make it disappear." The other voice agreed, mentioning a transfer to clean it up. Ava saved the file, her hands trembling. This was bigger than she'd thought. Daniel wasn't just playing hardball. He was playing dirty. But who was feeding her these leaks? And why were they so eager to take him down? She leaned back in her chair, staring at the city lights beyond her apartment window. Daniel Walsh was a puzzle, but the pieces were starting to fit. The grant email and audio all pointed to a man desperate to control the narrative. Ava wasn't just chasing a story anymore. She was chasing the truth, and it was leading her straight to the heart of his empire. The Chicago Tribune newsroom thrummed with its usual chaos, but Ava Bennett felt the weight of silence pressing against her. Her desk, cluttered with notes and coffee-stained mugs, was a war zone of half-formed leads and cryptic clues. The anonymous audio file, Daniel Walsh's voice admitting to burying a financial loss, sat like a grenade on her laptop. She hadn't shared it with anyone yet, not even Mark, her editor. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford until she knew more. Daniel Walsh, The media tycoon whose empire loomed over Chicago's skyline had become her obsession. The grant he'd offered the Tribune was a glittering distraction, but the email she'd glimpsed in his office confirmed the transfer is buried, and the audio files painted a darker picture. Ava needed answers and wasn't waiting for another anonymous tip to spoon-feed her the truth. She arranged to meet Daniel at a neutral spot, a quiet coffee shop in the Loop, far from the Tribune's prying eyes and Walsh Media's glass tower. The place was cozy, with exposed brick walls and the scent of roasted beans cutting through the morning chill. Ava arrived early, claiming a corner booth with a clear view of the door. Her notebook lay open, her pen tapping a restless rhythm. Daniel walked in at exactly 10, his tailored coat draped over one arm, his presence commanding the room without effort. He spotted her and slid into the booth, his expression a mix of curiosity and caution. "Ava," he said, his voice smooth but guarded. "You're persistent. I'll give you that." "I'm a journalist," she replied. Her tone clipped. "Persistence is the job. We need to talk about Midwest news." His eyebrows lifted slightly, but he leaned back unfazed. "We've been over this. It was a clean deal. You're chasing shadows." Ava pulled out her phone, keeping it low on the table. She hit play, and Daniel's voice filled the space between them. "We bury the loss, no questions asked." She watched his face closely. His jaw tightened, his fingers stilled on the coffee cup. For a moment, he was silent, the hum of the cafe louder than his response. "Where did you get that?" he asked finally, his voice low, almost a growl. "Doesn't matter," Ava said. "What matters is what it means. You buried a loss, Daniel. That's not a shadow. That's fraud." He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "You're jumping to conclusions. That recording, it's out of context. Years ago, I made a bad call on a tanked startup. I moved money to cover it, but it wasn't illegal. It was a desperate move to save jobs, not a scam." Ava didn't blink. "Desperate or not, you hit it. And now you're throwing millions at the Tribune to keep us quiet. That's not philanthropy. That's control." Daniel's hand clenched into a fist, then relaxed. "You think I'm that calculating, Ava? My company employs thousands. One bad headline, one misstep, and it all crumbles. I'm not hiding from you. I'm protecting what I've built." She scribbled a note, her pen steady despite the tension. "Protecting it how? By burying losses, by strong-arming deals like Midwest News." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not a saint, Ava. I've cut corners. I've played hardball. But I'm not a criminal. You want the truth? Please help me find it. Someone's feeding you these leaks, and they're not doing it out of kindness. They want me down." Ava paused, her pen hovering. His words rang with a sincerity she hadn't expected, but trust was a long way off. "Why should I believe you? You've got every reason to lie." "Because I'm asking you to look deeper," he said, his voice earnest. "I'll open my books and give you access to my team. But you must promise me one thing. When you find the truth, you print it. All of it." She studied him, searching for a crack in his facade. He was either a master manipulator or a man caught in a web he didn't fully understand. Either way, she wasn't backing down. "I'll find the truth, Daniel, with or without your help." He nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "I wouldn't expect anything less." Back at the Tribune, Ava's mind churned. Daniel's offer to open his books was tempting, but it could be a trap, a way to control the narrative. She spent the afternoon digging into the audio file's metadata, but it was scrubbed clean, no trace of its origin. Whoever was leaking this had resources and motive. The question was, who? Her phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "Your draft on Walsh leaked. It's all over X. Ava's stomach dropped. She opened the app, scrolling through posts. Her unfinished article detailing the offshore account and the audio had been posted anonymously with her byline intact. The comments were brutal. Walsh is done. Tribune's got guts. Another billionaire crook. But others questioned her credibility. No proof, just rumors. Bennett's fishing for clicks. Ava stormed into Mark's office. How did this happen? That draft was on my laptop, nowhere else. Mark looked grim, his tie askew. I don't know, Ava. It's looking into it, but someone got into your files. This isn't good. The board's freaking out, and Walsh's team is threatening legal action. She crossed her arms. Let them sue. I didn't leak it. Someone's playing us. Mark rubbed his temples. I believe you, but this looks personal. You've got enemies, Ava. Inside or out, I don't know. But you need to watch your back. She left his office, her mind racing. The leak wasn't random. It was targeted, meant to discredit her and Daniel both. She pulled up the X post again, scanning for clues. The account was a burner created hours before the leak. No followers, no history. A dead end. That night, Ava sat in her apartment, the city's glow a faint comfort through her window. She replayed the audio, Daniel's voice mingling with the hum of her fridge. His confession in the cafe had shaken her, not because she believed him, but because he'd seemed genuinely afraid not of her, but of something bigger. Someone was pulling strings, and she was caught in the web. She typed up her notes, encrypting the file this time. Daniel's offer to help was a risk, but it was also a chance. If he was telling the truth, he could lead her to the source of the leaks. If he were lying, she'd catch him in it. Either way, the story was hers to break. The next day, Ava met Daniel at his office, a compromise to keep their collaboration discreet. The space felt different now, less imposing, more like a battlefield. Daniel handed her a flash drive. Financial records, emails, contracts. Everything I have on Midwest news. It's not pretty, but it's honest. She took the drive, skeptical. If this is a whitewash, I'll know. He smirked, but it lacked his usual swagger. I'm counting on it. Just don't burn me until you're sure. They spent hours combing through the files. Most were mundane board minutes, budget reports, but a few stood out: emails hinting pressure on Midwest's board, and a memo about offshore contingencies. Nothing illegal on its face, but enough to raise questions. Ava made copies, cataloging every detail in her mind. As they worked, Daniel's phone buzzed, constantly calls from his PR team, lawyers, and investors. The leaked draft had sparked a firestorm, and Walsh Media's stock was taking a hit. He ignored most of the calls, but Ava caught the strain in his posture, the way his fingers gripped his pen too tightly. You're in deep, she said, breaking the silence. This leak, it's not just about me. Someone wants you ruined. He nodded, his eyes on the skyline. I've made enemies, rivals, ex-partners, and even people in my own company. But this feels personal. Whoever's doing this knows exactly where to hit. Ava leaned back, studying him. Then we find them. Together. But if you're playing me, Daniel, I'll bury you. He met her gaze, a spark of something, respect, maybe flashing in his eyes. Deal. As she left the office, the flash drive heavy in her pocket, Ava felt the story shifting. It wasn't just about Daniel's secrets anymore. It was about who was pulling the strings and why they wanted both of them to fall. The Chicago skyline glittered under a gray morning sky, but Ava Bennett felt no warmth. The leaked draft of her article on Daniel Walsh had ignited a firestorm. X was ablaze with speculation, hashtags like #WalshScandal, trending alongside vitriolic debates about her credibility. The Tribune's newsroom, once her sanctuary, now felt like a minefield. Colleagues whispered as she passed, their glances, a mix of pity and suspicion. Ava kept her head high, her notebook clutched like armor. Daniel, meanwhile, was fighting his own war. Walsh Media's stock had dipped 5% overnight, and his PR team was in overdrive, churning out statements about baseless allegations and commitment to transparency. Ava knew the truth was murkier, but the leaked draft, half-baked, lacking the context she was still chasing, had painted them both as targets. Someone wanted chaos, and they'd gotten it. Daniel called her that afternoon, his voice tight. "We need to meet. Now. I've got something you need to see." They agreed on a park near the Art Institute, a public space where they could blend into the crowd. Ava arrived first, settling on a bench with a view of the lion statues. The air was crisp, the city humming with tourists and commuters. She spotted Daniel approaching, his usual polish replaced by a tense energy. He carried a manila folder, its edges worn. "Proof," he said, handing it to her. "Bank records, emails, and board minutes. Everything I could pull from Midwest news. It shows the deal was messy, but legal. No fraud." Ava flipped through the documents, her eyes scanning dates and figures. The records backed his story. The loss he'd mentioned was real, but it was absorbed through a restructuring, not an offshore scheme. Still, something felt off. The numbers were too neat, and the emails were too polished. "This looks like a cleanup job," she said, her tone sharp. "You expect me to trust this?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "I'm trying to work with you, Ava. Someone's framing me, and they're using you to do it. Please help me figure out who." She closed the folder, meeting his gaze. "I'm not your partner, Daniel. I'm a journalist. If we work together, it's to find the truth, not to save your reputation." He nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "Fair enough. But we're both in the crosshairs now. That leak didn't just hurt me, it hurt you." Ava couldn't argue with that. The Tribune's board was breathing down her neck, demanding a retraction or a finished story. Mark had given her a week, but the pressure was mounting. She agreed to a temporary alliance with conditions: full access to his team, no redactions, and no interference. Daniel agreed, though she caught the unease in his posture. Back at the newsroom, Ava dove into the documents, cross-referencing them with her own leads. The financials checked out, but a name kept popping up. Sophia Grant, a rival media exec with a history of clashing with Daniel. Ava's research revealed that Sophia's company had lost a major ad contract to Walsh Media a year ago. Motive maybe, but the leaks, the audio, the offshore account felt too precise, too orchestrated. She was deep in her notes when her colleague Lena Carter stopped by her desk. Lena, a veteran reporter with a knack for gossip, leaned in close. "You're playing with fire, Ava. Walsh is dangerous, but not in the way you think. Don't trust him too much." Ava frowned, setting down her pen. "What's that supposed to mean?" Lena glanced around, her voice low. "He's got a way of pulling people in, making them think he's on their side. I've seen it before. Just be careful." The warning lingered as Ava returned to her work. Lena's words weren't evidence, but sowed a seed of doubt. Was Daniel playing her, or was Lena always ambitious, stirring the pot for her own reasons? That evening, Ava met Daniel at a diner across town, a greasy spoon where no one would recognize them. They pored over the documents, piecing together a timeline. The Midwest deal had been rushed with pressure from Walsh Media's board to close it fast. The buried loss in the audio was real, but it was a legal write-off, not a crime. Still, someone had gone to great lengths to make it look dirty. "We need to trace the leaks," Ava said, sipping her coffee. "The audio and the documents are coming from someone with access. Someone inside your circle or mine." Daniel nodded, his eyes on the table. "I've got my team auditing our servers. If it's one of my people, I'll find them. But you need to check the Tribune. That leak came from your side." Ava bristled but couldn't deny it. The draft had been on her laptop, password protected, but not encrypted. Someone had gotten in, and it wasn't a random hacker. She made a mental note to talk to IT, but her gut told her the answer wasn't technical. It was personal. The next day, the pressure intensified. The Tribune's board called an emergency meeting, and Ava was summoned. The conference room was stark, the air heavy with tension. The publisher, a stern woman named Elaine Voss, fixed Ava with a cold stare. "Your draft caused a mess, Bennett. We're getting heat from Walsh's lawyers and our advertisers. Fix this or you're out." Ava kept her voice steady. "I didn't leak it. Someone's trying to sabotage this story and me. I need time to prove it." Elaine's eyes narrowed. "You've got 3 days. After that, we're running a retraction." Back at her desk, Ava felt the walls closing in. She called Daniel, arranging another meeting. This time, they met at a rooftop bar, the city sprawling below them. The setting felt too intimate, too staged, but Ava needed his perspective. "They're boxing me in," she said, swirling her drink. "The leak wasn't just about you. It was about shutting me down." Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. "Then we fight back. My team found a server log showing unauthorized access to my email. It's not much, but it's a start." "What about your side?" Ava hesitated. Lena's warning echoed in her mind, but she pushed it aside. "I'm checking. But we need to move fast. Whoever's doing this isn't done." They spent the next hour strategizing, mapping out suspects. Sophia Grant was at the top of the list, but Ava couldn't shake Lena's words. Was Daniel too close to the truth? Or was he leading her into a trap? Daniel touched her arm as they parted, a brief gesture that felt too familiar. "We'll get through this, Ava. Together." She pulled back, her eyes sharp. "We're not a team, Daniel. We're just after the same truth for now." He nodded, a half smile tugging at his lips. Noted. Back home, Ava sat at her kitchen table. The city's hum, a distant comfort. The documents, the leaks, Lena's warning, it all swirled in her mind. She was close, but the truth was still out of reach. And with every step, the stakes were getting higher. The Chicago skyline shimmered against the dusk, a mosaic of glass and steel that Ava Bennett barely noticed as she navigated the crowded sidewalks toward Navy Pier. The invitation had come from Daniel Walsh, a surprise that set her on edge, a charity event for underprivileged kids hosted by his foundation. It felt like a calculated move, another layer of his carefully crafted image. But curiosity and the need to understand him pulled her forward. The leaked draft, the anonymous audio, and the shadowy email from his office still haunted her. Daniel was either a master manipulator or a man caught in a storm he didn't control. Tonight, she'd see which. Navy Pier buzzed with life, families, laughing vendors, hawking cotton candy, the Ferris wheel casting a warm glow over the scene. Ava spotted Daniel near the event stage, his tailored blazer swapped for a casual sweater that softened his usual polish. Kids surrounded him, their faces excitedly lit as he handed out backpacks stuffed with school supplies. The sight caught Ava off guard. It was hard to reconcile the media tycoon with this man kneeling to tie a girl's shoe. He noticed and waved her over, his smile genuine, but tinged with fatigue. "Glad you made it, Ava. I suggest you take a break from the newsroom." She crossed her arms, her notebook tucked under one elbow. "This doesn't change anything, Daniel. I'm here to observe, not to applaud." He chuckled, undeterred. "Fair enough. Meet some of the kids. They're the real story tonight." Reluctantly, she followed him through the crowd. The event was vibrant music blaring, volunteers organizing games, kids darting between booths. Daniel introduced her to a group of middle schoolers, their eyes wide, as he explained how his foundation funded their after-school programs. Ava listened, her journalist's instincts cataloging every detail. His easy rapport with the kids, how he remembered their names, the absence of cameras or press releases. This wasn't a photo op. It was personal. As the evening wore on, they drifted to a quieter corner of the pier near the water's edge. The lake stretched dark and endless, its surface catching the city's lights. Daniel leaned against the railing, his gaze distant. I used to be a journalist, you know. Small paper barely paid the bills. Loved every second of it. Ava raised an eyebrow, skeptical. You... Chasing deadlines in a newsroom. He nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Started as a beat reporter in St. Louis. Covered City Hall, crime the usual. Learned how to ask hard questions like you do. Then I saw how the industry worked, how money calls the shots. Decided I'd rather be the one writing the checks. She studied him, searching for a lie. So why the charity guilt for selling out? His smile faded, replaced by something raw. Maybe. I built something big. Ava, but it cost me. Friends, ideals, pieces of myself. This. He gestured to the kids, laughing in the distance. This keeps me grounded. Reminds me why I started. Ava saw a crack in his armor for the first time. Not the tycoon, but the man. She wanted to push and ask about the audio and the offshore accounts, but the moment felt fragile. Instead, she said, "You're good with them. The kids, they trust you." He shrugged his eyes on the water. Kids don't care about your title. They want you to show up. They stood in silence, the pier's noise fading into the background. Ava felt a shift, a flicker of empathy she hadn't expected. Daniel wasn't just a story anymore. He was human, flawed, and maybe, just maybe, trying to do right. The moment was shattered when a woman's voice cut through the air. Daniel Walsh, still playing the hero. Ava turned to see Sophia Grant, a rival media exec, striding toward them. Her presence was electric, her tailored dress commanding attention. Sophia's history with Daniel was murky, rumors of a past relationship, professional betrayals, but her reputation for ruthlessness was crystal clear. She stopped a few feet away, her eyes flicking to Ava with curiosity and disdain. Sophia, Daniel said, his tone flat. "Didn't expect you here. Someone has to keep an eye on you," Sophia replied, her smile sharp. She turned to the small crowd nearby, raising her voice. "Funny how Daniel's charity work always seems to coincide with bad press. Covering up something, are we?" The accusation landed like a bomb. Heads turned, whispers rippling through the crowd. Ava's hand tightened around her notebook. Sophia was baiting him, and Daniel's jaw clenched, his calm unraveling. "I'm here for the kids, Sophia," he said, his voice low but firm. "Not your games." Sophia laughed, a cold sound. "Games? You're the master of those, Daniel. Or have you forgotten the deals you buried? The people you stepped on?" Her eyes darted to Ava. "Ask your new friend here. She's got the dirt." Ava's stomach twisted. Sophia knew about the leaks, maybe even orchestrated them. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "If you've got something to say, Sophia, say it. Don't hide behind innuendo." Sophia's smile widened, but her eyes were ice. "Oh, I will, Ava. Just wait." As Sophia walked away, the crowd buzzing in her wake, Ava turned to Daniel. "What was that about?" He exhaled, his shoulders slumping. "Sophia's got a vendetta. Always has. She'll do anything to tear me down." Ava scribbled a note, her mind racing. Sophia's public jab wasn't random. It was a warning. The question was whether she was the source of the leaks or another player in the game. Back at her apartment, Ava spread her notes across the table, the peer's warmth, a distant memory. Sophia's name now joined Daniel's in her web of suspects. She pulled up old articles, digging into Sophia's career, a meteoric rise, a string of high-profile deals, and a bitter feud with Walsh Media after a lost contract. The pieces fit, but they were still incomplete. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lena, her colleague at the Tribune. "Heard about the peer. Sophia's trouble. Watch your back." Ava frowned. Lena's warnings were starting to feel like a pattern too convenient to be a coincidence. She typed a quick reply. Thanks. I'm on it. But her trust in Lena was fraying. She replayed the audio file, Daniel's voice echoing, "We bury the loss." Sophia's accusation at the pier suggested she knew more than she let on. Ava needed to confront her, but first she needed Daniel's side. She texted him, "We need to talk. Tomorrow. Your office." His reply was immediate. "I'll be there. Bring your questions." As Ava shut her laptop, the city's hum filled the silence. The story was growing teeth, and she was caught in its jaws. Sophia's outburst had raised the stakes, but also revealed a crack in the facade. Ava would pry it open no matter the cost. The Chicago Tribune newsroom was a pressure cooker, and Ava Bennett felt the heat. Her desk was a fortress of chaos, stacked files, scribbled notes, and a cold coffee mug, but her focus was razor sharp. Sophia Grant's public jab at Navy Pier had lit a fuse, and the fallout was spreading. X was buzzing with clips of the confrontation, amateur videos capturing Sophia's accusation. "Covering up something, are we?" The posts fueled speculation, with Daniel Walsh's name trending alongside #MediaMogulMess. Ava's name was tangled in the mix, and her credibility was questioned by strangers online. She'd spent the morning digging into Sophia, piecing together her motives. A quick search confirmed what Daniel had hinted. Sophia and Daniel had been romantically involved years ago, a brief but fiery relationship ending when Walsh Media outbid her company for a major ad deal. Sophia's career was hit, and her resentment was public knowledge. But was she bitter enough to orchestrate the leaks? The audio, the offshore account documents. Ava needed proof, not rumors. She met Daniel at his office, the glass tower looming over the loop like a sentinel. The space felt different now, less like a throne room and more like a bunker. Daniel sat behind his desk. His tie loosened his eyes, shadowed with exhaustion. "Sophia's out for blood," he said, skipping pleasantries. "She's done this before, spread lies, twisted truths. She wants my company in flames." Ava set her notebook down, her pen poised. "You didn't mention that you two were involved." "That's a significant omission, Daniel." He sighed, leaning back. "It was years ago, a mistake. We dated briefly, but it ended when I chose business over whatever we had. She didn't take it well. Now she's using you to settle the score." Ava's eyes narrowed. "Using me? Or are you using me to dodge her? I need the truth." "Daniel, all of it." He held her gaze, his voice steady. "I've told you everything. The Midwest deal was messy but legal. The audio you have is real, but it's old and taken out of context. Sophia's got connections, Ava. She could have gotten it from someone on my team, someone I trusted." Ava scribbled a note, her mind racing. If she's behind the leaks, why go public at the pier? Why tip her hand? "Because she's desperate," he said. "She knows you're close to something. She's trying to control the narrative before you do." Ava wasn't convinced, but she filed the theory away. She pulled out her phone, showing him a screenshot of an X post, a grainy video of the pier confrontation, Sophia's words looping in the comments. "This isn't just a tantrum, Daniel. She's got something, and I'm going to find it." He nodded, his expression grim. "Then let's find it together. My team is auditing our servers. We'll know soon if Sophia's got someone on the inside." Ava returned to the Tribune that afternoon, her mind a tangle of leads. She was about to call a source when her phone buzzed, an anonymous email. No subject. Attached was a video file. Her heart sank as she hit play. It was Daniel speaking to a man in a suit in what looked like a dimly lit office. "We'll make it go away," Daniel said, his voice unmistakable. "A small payment, nothing traceable. They'll never know." The video cut off abruptly, but the implication was clear bribery. Ava's hands shook as she saved the file. This was no out-of-context audio. This was damning. She forwarded it to her encrypted drive, then sat back, her mind reeling. Sophia's fingerprints were all over this, her public jab at the pier, her history with Daniel. But how had she gotten the video? And why send it to Ava now? By evening, the video had hit X and was posted by another burner account. The backlash was immediate. Walsh caught bribing officials, Tribune's Ava Bennett sitting on this. The comments stung, but Ava barely had time to process before Mark stormed into her cubicle. "What the hell is this, Ava? You've got a video of Walsh bribing someone and it's on X before we print." "I didn't leak it," she snapped, standing. "It came to me today. I'm verifying it." Mark's eyes narrowed. "You're too close to this, Ava. The board's talking suspension. They think you're working with Walsh, not against him." The words hit like a slap. "That's wild. I'm chasing the truth, Mark. Someone's playing us, me, you, the Tribune, and I think it's Sophia Grant." He sighed, rubbing his neck. "Prove it then, but do it fast. You're on thin ice." Ava spent the night at her apartment, and the video was in the loop. The man in the suit wasn't identifiable, but the setting looked like Walsh Media's offices. She cross-referenced the timestamp 2 years ago, before the Midwest deal. It fit Daniel's story of a messy but legal transaction, but the word payment screamed corruption. She needed to confront him, but first she needed Sophia. The next morning, Ava tracked Sophia to a media panel downtown. The room was packed with industry types, their chatter a dull roar. Sophia stood at the podium, her presence commanding, her words sharp, as she discussed ethics in media. The irony wasn't lost on Ava. During the Q&A, Ava stood, her voice cutting through the room. "Ms. Grant, you've accused Daniel Walsh of unethical practices. Care to share your evidence? Or is this just personal?" The crowd murmured, heads turning. Sophia's smile was tight, her eyes flashing. "I don't make baseless claims, Ms. Bennett. Unlike some, I don't cozy up to my subjects." The jab landed, but Ava didn't flinch. "Then let's see your proof. I'm happy to compare notes." Sophia deflected, moving on to the next question, but Ava caught the unease in her posture. After the panel, she cornered Sophia in the lobby. "You sent me that video, didn't you? What's your game?" Sophia's laugh was cold. "You're out of your depth, Ava. Keep digging and you'll bury yourself." The threat lingered as Ava left, her mind racing. Sophia was involved, but she wasn't working alone. Someone at the Tribune had leaked her draft, and now this video. Ava needed to find the traitor, and fast. She met Daniel that evening at a quiet bar. The city's glow muted through the windows. He looked haggard, the weight of the scandal showing. "The video's fake," he said, his voice low. "Edited. I never bribed anyone." "It's Sophia, she's done this before." Ava slid her phone across the table, and the video paused. "Then explain this." "It's your voice, your office." He watched it, his face hardening. "It's a setup. The conversation was about a vendor payment, not a bribe. They've cut it to make me look guilty." "Ava, I'm begging you to help me prove it." She leaned back, her trust wavering. "I'm not here to save you, Daniel. I'm here for the truth. If you're clean, I'll prove it. If you're not, I'll write it." He nodded, his eyes searching hers. "That's all I ask." As Ava left the bar, the city's pulse matched her own. Sophia's threat, the video, and the leaks were all closing in. She ran out of time, and the truth slipped through her fingers. The Chicago Tribune newsroom was a storm of ringing phones and frantic typing, but Ava Bennett felt like the eye of the hurricane. Her desk, a cluttered battlefield of notes and coffee cups, held the weight of her investigation into Daniel Walsh. The leaked video, Daniel's voice saying, "A small payment." Nothing traceable had exploded across X, fueling hashtags like #WalshBribe and had media corruption. The public was ravenous, and Ava's name was tangled in the chaos, her credibility hanging by a thread. The Tribune's board had her on a tight leash, and her editor Mark was fielding calls from Walsh Media's lawyers. Ava knew she was running out of time. Daniel had insisted the video was fake, a cleverly edited clip from a mundane vendor payment discussion. Ava wasn't sold, but his willingness to open his records and his palpable fear suggested he might be telling the truth. Sophia Grant, his rival and former flame, was the obvious suspect behind the leaks, but Ava needed proof. The anonymous emails, audio, and video all pointed to a coordinated attack, and Sophia's public jab at Navy Pier only deepened Ava's suspicion. She met Daniel at a nondescript diner in Wicker Park, far from the Loop's prying eyes. The place smelled of grease and nostalgia, its booths empty, save for a few regulars. Daniel slid into the seat across from her, his usual polish dulled by a wrinkled shirt and shadowed eyes. He carried a laptop, its screen glowing with data. "We've got something," he said, his voice low. "My tech team traced the video's upload to a server linked to Sophia's company. It's not airtight, but it's a start." Ava leaned forward, her notebook open. "Please show me." He turned the laptop toward her, displaying server logs and IP addresses. The video had been uploaded from a VPN, but the trail led to a domain registered under a subsidiary of Grant Media. It was circumstantial, but it was enough to keep digging. Ava jotted down the details, her mind racing. "If this is Sophia, she's not working alone," Ava said. "The draft leak came from inside the Tribune. Someone's feeding her my work." Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we find them. I'm going on air tonight. Local news live. I'll admit to the Midwest news mess the loss we covered. Full transparency. It'll buy us time." Ava raised an eyebrow. "You're admitting fault?" "That's bold." "It's necessary," he said. "The public's turning on me. If I don't control the narrative, Sophia will. But I need you to back me up, Ava. Find the truth before she buries us both." She closed her notebook, her eyes sharp. "I'm not your PR team, Daniel. I'll find the truth, but I'm printing it whether it saves you or not." He gave a tired smile. "Wouldn't have it any other way." That evening, Ava watched Daniel's interview from her apartment, the TV casting a blue glow across her living room. He sat across from a local anchor, his demeanor calm but earnest. "I've made mistakes," he said, his voice steady. "The Midwest news deal was messy. We hit a loss to save jobs, not to deceive. I'm opening our books to prove it." He promised audits, transparency, and cooperation with any investigation. The anchor pressed him on the video, but Daniel deflected, calling it a fabrication meant to distract. The interview was a gamble, and it worked partially. X lit up with mixed reactions. Some praised his candor. Others called it damage control. Ava scrolled through the posts, noting the shift in tone. Daniel had bought time, but the video's shadow lingered. She needed to prove it was fake and fast. She spent the night analyzing the video frame by frame on her laptop. The audio was clean, Daniel's voice unmistakable, but the visuals were off, a slight blur around the man in the suit, a mismatch in lighting. She sent it to a contact at a digital forensics lab, a favor from her college days. The response came at dawn. Preliminary analysis suggests splicing. Audio and video don't align perfectly. Need more time for confirmation. It was enough to keep going. Ava headed to the Tribune, her mind buzzing. She was about to call Daniel when Mark intercepted her in the hallway, his face grim. "You're off the Walsh story. Ava board's orders. You're suspended effective now." Ava froze, her heart pounding. "What, Mark? I didn't leak that draft. I'm close to breaking this. Sophia's behind the video, I know it." He shook his head, his voice low. "Doesn't matter. The board thinks you're too close to Walsh. They're getting heat from advertisers, and that video's got everyone spooked. Hand over your notes and go home. Ava's fists clenched. This is a setup. Someone's playing us Mark. You know I'm right. I know you're good, he said, his eyes tired. But I can't fight the board. Take a week, let this cool off. We'll figure it out. She stormed to her desk, grabbing her laptop and notes. Suspension was a gut punch, but it wasn't the end. She'd do it alone if the Tribune wouldn't let her work. She texted Daniel, suspended. Meet me tonight. We're finishing this. They met at a rooftop bar overlooking the river, the city's lights a glittering distraction. Daniel looked worse than before. His tie gone, his sleeves rolled up. Suspension. That's bull, Ava. They're scared. They're not wrong to be, she said, sipping a soda. That video's killing us both. But I've got a lead. It's edited just like you said. If we can prove it, we can trace it to Sophia. He nodded, his eyes scanning the skyline. My team's digging too. We found an email from one of Sophia's execs to a freelance editor known for deepfakes. It's thin, but it's something. Ava pulled out her notebook, jotting down the name. We need more. If Sophia's behind this, she's got someone at the Tribune. The draft leak didn't come from nowhere. They spent the next hour strategizing, mapping out a plan. Ava would track the editor, and Daniel would lean on his contacts to dig into Sophia's financials. It was a risky alliance, but Ava had no choice. The truth was her only way back. As they parted, Daniel touched her shoulder, his voice soft. You're taking a hit for this, Ava. I won't forget it. She pulled back, her eyes sharp. Don't thank me yet. If you're lying, I'll burn you myself. He smiled, a flicker of respect in his gaze. Noted. Back home, Ava sat at her kitchen table, the city's hum, a faint comfort. The video, the suspension, and Sophia's shadow all closed in. But she was close, closer than ever. She opened her laptop, and the forensics report glowed on the screen. The truth was there, waiting to be found. Ava Bennett's apartment was a fortress of determination, its small kitchen table buried under a chaos of notes, printouts, and her laptop screen glowing with the damning video of Daniel Walsh. Her suspension from the Tribune had lit a fire under her, transforming frustration into resolve. The newsroom might have sidelined her, but Ava was a journalist to her core, and no boardroom edict could stop her from chasing the truth. The video, Daniel's voice discussing a payment, was fake. Her forensics contact had confirmed it, but proving it and unmasking the culprit was her only path back. Sophia Grant was the obvious suspect, and her vendetta against Daniel was clear as day. However, Ava's draft article leak pointed to a traitor inside the Tribune, someone with access to her files. The betrayal stung, and Ava's list of suspects was short, but chilling. Lena Carter, her ambitious colleague, who'd warned her about Daniel. Mark, her editor, who seemed caught between loyalty and pressure. Or someone higher up bowing to advertisers, or Sophia's influence. Ava needed answers, and she wasn't waiting for permission. She started with Lena. They met at a coffee shop near the Tribune, a neutral spot where Ava could gauge her colleagues' reactions. Lena arrived late, her usual confidence tinged with unease. Heard about your suspension, she said, stirring her latte. Rough break, Ava. You okay? I'll be fine, Ava said, her voice cool. But someone's screwing me over, Lena. My draft leaked from inside the Tribune. Do you know anything about that? Lena's eyes widened, but Ava caught the flicker of hesitation. Me? No way. I'm on your side, Ava. You know how it is, someone's always looking to climb over someone else. Ava leaned forward, her notebook untouched. Then who? You've been warning me about Daniel dropping hints. If you know something, say it. Lena's fingers tightened around her cup. I'm just looking out for you. Walsh is slick, and you're getting too close. People talk, Ava. They think you're in his pocket. The accusation hit hard, but Ava kept her face neutral. People or you, If you've got evidence, show me. Otherwise, stop dancing around it. Lena looked away, her jaw tight. I don't have anything concrete. Just be careful. Okay? Ava left the meeting unconvinced. Lena's deflections were too practiced, and her warnings were too pointed. She was either protecting someone or hiding her own role. Ava made a mental note to dig into Lena's recent assignments, especially any tied to Sophia or Grant Media. Next, Ava turned to the video. Her forensics contact had sent a full report. The audio was spliced, and the visuals were manipulated to place Daniel in a compromising scene. The editor's signature was subtle, but traceable, a watermark in the metadata linked to a freelancer known for shady work. Ava cross-referenced the name with Sophia's company records found in a public database. A Grant Media subsidiary had paid the freelancer for consulting work. It wasn't proof, but it was a thread. She called Daniel and met him at a park bench along the Chicago River. The city's pulse was steady, but Ava felt the weight of every passing minute. Daniel looked worse than ever, his eyes bloodshot, his usual charm buried under stress. "You've got something?" he asked, skipping pleasantries. Ava said the video's a deepfake, handing him a printout of the forensics report, traced to a freelancer tied to Sophia. "But I need more access to your internal emails, anything that might show who's working with her." Daniel nodded, pulling out his phone. "I'll get you everything. My team has already flagged suspicious activity. One of my junior executives contacted Sophia's people last year. Could be nothing, but I'm digging." Ava scribbled a note. "Good. But I've got a problem closer to home. Someone at the Tribune is feeding Sophia my work. I think it's Lena Carter." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Your colleague? Why her?" "She's ambitious, and her warnings about you feel off. Like she's steering me away from something. I'm checking her out, but I need to be careful. If I'm wrong, I'm burning bridges." He leaned back the river, reflecting in his eyes. "Then we move fast. I'll get you those emails by tonight." "But Ava, if it's Lena, she's not the mastermind. Sophia's pulling the strings." Ava nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then we cut them." That night, Ava worked from her apartment, her laptop humming as she sifted through Tribune archives. Lena's bylines showed a pattern stories that subtly favored Grant Media's interests, buried in lifestyle pieces or corporate profiles. It was subtle, but it was there. Ava hacked into the Tribune's internal server, using a backdoor from an old IT contact, and found Lena's email. One thread stood out: messages to an anonymous account discussing Walsh's mess and keeping Ava in check. The sender's IP matched the one that leaked her draft. Ava's heart raced. Lena was the traitor. But the emails hinted at a bigger player, someone directing Lena, someone with power. Sophia, or someone higher up at the Tribune. Ava saved the emails and encrypted them on her drive. She needed to confront Lena, but not yet. She needed proof that stuck. The next morning, Ava's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you're done." The threat was blunt, chilling. She screenshot it, her hands steady despite the adrenaline. Whoever was behind this was getting desperate, and desperation meant mistakes. She met Daniel at a quiet library downtown, a haven from prying eyes. He handed her a flash drive. "Emails from my exec. They show Sophia's company paid him to leak internal memos. It's not the video, but it's a start." Ava took the drive, her mind racing. "I've got something too. Lena's been emailing someone about me in the leaks. It's her Daniel. But she's not alone." He nodded, his face grim. "Then we take them down. Together." Ava hesitated, the threat still burning in her mind. "If we do this, there's no going back. Lena's already threatened me. If Sophia's behind her, it's going to get ugly." Daniel's eyes met hers, steady and resolute. "I'm in Ava all the way." She nodded, the weight of their alliance settling in. Lena was the key, but Sophia was the prize. Ava would expose them both, even if it meant tearing the Tribune apart. The Chicago skyline glittered beyond Ava Bennett's apartment window, but its beauty felt distant, a backdrop to the storm brewing in her mind. Her suspension from the Tribune had left her untethered, but the discovery of Lena Carter's betrayal emails linking her to Sophia Grant's vendetta had sharpened her focus. The manipulated video of Daniel Walsh, the leaked draft. The anonymous threats, they all pointed to a conspiracy, and Ava was determined to unravel it. But the deeper she dug, the more she realized Daniel himself was a puzzle she couldn't solve without confronting his past. She met Daniel at a quiet bookstore in Lincoln Park, its shelves a labyrinth of worn spines and muted conversations. The setting felt safe, a refuge from the chaos of their investigation. Daniel arrived with a folder tucked under his arm, his posture tense, but his eyes steady. The video scandal had shaken him, but his resolve matched hers. They settled in a corner surrounded by the scent of old paper and coffee. Ava said Lena's emails confirm she's working with Sophia, keeping her voice low. But they're not enough to nail her. We need to know who's pulling her strings and why. Daniel nodded, sliding the folder across the table. This might help. Old records from my early days at Walsh Media. I wasn't always clean, Ava. There's something you need to know. She opened the folder, her fingers brushing against faded documents. They detailed a small newspaper in St. Louis, the Daily Herald, acquired by Walsh Media a decade ago. The acquisition had been swift, brutal. The paper was struggling, and Daniel's company swooped in, buying it for pennies. Within months, it was shuttered and its staff was laid off. Ava's eyes scanned a memo from Daniel himself, approving the closure. The coldness of it made her pause. "You killed a newspaper," she said, her tone flat but sharp. "People lost their jobs, their voices." Daniel leaned back, his gaze fixed on the table. "I know. It's my biggest regret. I was young, hungry, building an empire. The Herald was bleeding money, and my board pushed me to cut it loose. I didn't fight hard enough to save it." Ava flipped through the pages, finding letters from former Herald staff, angry, pleading, accusing Daniel of betraying the industry he'd once been part of. "You were a journalist," she said. "You knew what that paper meant to them. How could you just let it die?" He exhaled, his voice heavy with guilt. "I told myself it was business, survival of the fittest. But it wasn't just numbers. Those people trusted me and I let them down. It's why I fund charities now and gave the Tribune that grant. It's not absolution. It's penance." Ava studied him, searching for a lie. The man before her wasn't the slick tycoon from their first interview. He was raw, exposed, carrying a wound she hadn't seen before. "Why tell me this now?" she asked. "Because you're chasing the truth," he said. "And the truth is, I'm not perfect. Sophia knows about the Herald. She was there working for a rival outlet. She's using it against me, twisting my mistakes to paint me a monster." Ava closed the folder, her mind racing. The Herald story motivated Sophia, but also humanized Daniel in a way she hadn't expected. If Sophia's behind the leaks, she's got more than just old grudges. She's got someone inside the Tribune. Lena, maybe others. We need to connect them. Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. "I've got my team pulling emails from my exec, who was in touch with Sophia. If we can link him to Lena, we've got a chain." Ava scribbled a note, her pen moving fast. "I'm meeting my forensics contact tomorrow. They're digging deeper into the video. We've got her if we can prove it's a deepfake and trace it to Sophia's freelancer." They spent the next hour planning, their voices low but urgent. Daniel would focus on his company's internal leaks. Ava would confront Lena carefully to gauge her reaction. But as they parted, Daniel's hand lingered on the table, his eyes searching hers. I'm trusting you, Ava. Please don't make me regret it. She met his gaze, unflinching. Trust goes both ways, Daniel. If you're holding anything back, I'll find it. He smiled, a flicker of respect in his eyes. I know you will. Back at her apartment, Ava spread the Herald documents across her table, the city's hum a faint comfort. The story was a gut punch. Daniel's betrayal of his roots explained his guarded nature and his need to control the narrative. But it also made him vulnerable, a fact Sophia was exploiting. Ava reviewed Lena's emails again, cross-referencing them with Sophia's company records. A pattern emerged: payments from a Grant Media subsidiary to an account linked to Lena's brother, a freelance consultant. It wasn't proof, but it was close. Her phone buzzed a text from her forensics contact. Video's metadata points to editing software used by Sophia's freelancer. I need one more day to complete the report. Ava's pulse quickened. The pieces were falling into place, but the threat from the anonymous texter, "Stop digging or you're done," loomed large. She screenshot the message, adding it to her encrypted drive. The next morning, Ava staked out Lena at the Tribune. She didn't confront her directly. Instead, she watched from a nearby coffee shop as Lena met a man in a suit outside the office. The exchange was quick. A folder passed between them. Lena's posture tense. Ava snapped a photo, zooming in on the man's face. He wasn't familiar, but his suit screamed corporate. She sent the picture to Daniel, asking if he recognized him. His reply came within minutes. "That's my exec, Tom Reed. He's the one emailing Sophia's people." Ava's heart raced. The chain was forming: Lena to Tom to Sophia. But why was Lena, a seasoned reporter, risking her career for this? Ava tailed Lena to a bar that evening, keeping her distance. Lena sat alone, nursing a drink, her phone buzzing constantly. Ava slipped into a booth nearby, her notebook hidden in her bag. When Lena stepped away to take a call, Ava glimpsed her phone screen an email from the same anonymous account that had leaked Ava's draft. She couldn't read the text, but the timing was too perfect. Back home, Ava called Daniel. "Lena's in deep with your exec, Tom. They're working with Sophia, but I need to know why. What's Lena's angle?" Daniel's voice was grim. "Tom's been with me for years. If he's turned, it's because Sophia's got leverage, money, blackmail, something. Lena's probably the same. Check her financials." Ava spent the night digging and using her Tribune contacts to pull Lena's expense reports. A pattern emerged: unexplained deposits, small but frequent, funneled through her brother's account. It was enough to confront her, but Ava held off. She needed the forensics report to seal the video's fate. The next day, the report arrived. The video was a deepfake, its audio stitched from unrelated conversations, its visuals manipulated to frame Daniel. The metadata pointed directly to Sophia's freelancer. Ava felt a surge of triumph, but it was short-lived. Another anonymous text arrived. "You're too close. Back off or you lose everything." Ava stared at the message, her resolve hardening. She and Daniel met that evening at a quiet diner, the folder of Herald documents between them. "We've got Sophia," Ava said, sliding the forensics report across the table. "The video's fake, and it's hers. But Lena's the key. She's the inside man, and she's scared." Daniel nodded, his eyes fierce. "Then we write it. Together. Expose Sophia. Lena, Tom, the whole damn thing." Ava hesitated, the weight of his past and her suspension pressing against her. But his confession about the Herald had shifted something. She saw the man behind the tycoon, flawed but fighting. "All right," she said. "We write it. But it's my byline, and it's the truth. No spin." He smiled, a spark of relief in his eyes. "Deal." They spent the night drafting their words, sharp and unrelenting. The article would expose Sophia's deepfake, Lena's betrayal, and Tom's collusion with Daniel's Herald confession as context. It was a risk, but Ava was done playing safe. The truth was her weapon, and she was ready to wield it. The Chicago wind howled outside Ava Bennett's apartment, a fitting soundtrack to the storm she was about to unleash. Her laptop screen glowed with the draft she and Daniel Walsh had crafted, a blistering expose of Sophia Grant's deepfake video, Lena Carter's betrayal, and Tom Reed's collusion. The article was a grenade, and Ava held the pin. Her suspension from the Tribune made publishing it risky, but the truth was worth it. Daniel's confession about the Daily Herald had given her pause, but his willingness to bear his flaws for the story had earned her trust, not entirely, but enough. Daniel sat across from her at the kitchen table. His sleeves rolled up a pizza box between them. The scene was oddly domestic, starkly contrasting to the high-stakes game they were playing. A bottle of red wine sat untouched, its presence, a nod to a truce neither had fully acknowledged. "You sure about this?" he asked, his voice low. "Once this goes out, there's no going back." Ava met his gaze, her pen tapping the table. "I'm sure. But you're taking a hit too, Daniel. The Herald story won't make you look good." He shrugged, a tired smile tugging at his lips. "I've been hiding from it long enough. So be it if it takes me down a peg to get the truth out." Ava nodded, a flicker of respect warming her chest. She'd spent weeks distrusting him, but this, his willingness to sacrifice his image, felt real. "All right," she said. "We sent it to my old professor, who is now at the Sun-Times. He'll run it, no questions asked." But before they could finalize the plan, Daniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face hardening. "It's my board. They're pulling a deal, a big one, with a streaming platform. The video scandal spooks them, saying it's too much risk." Ava frowned. "How big?" "Big enough to hurt," he said, his voice tight. "Millions in revenue, hundreds of jobs. They want me to kill the story and keep the Herald out of it. Say it's the only way to save the deal." Ava's stomach twisted. "And what do you want?" He looked at her, his eyes steady. "I want the truth, but I need to protect my people. If I kill the story, you're exposed, Ava. Your career takes a hit." She leaned back, her mind racing. The article was her ticket back to the Tribune, her chance to clear her name. But Daniel's employees, people who trusted him, were on the line. "You're asking me to choose between my career and your company?" "No," he said, his voice firm. "I'm choosing. I'm pulling the deal. The story runs, and I take the fall." Ava stared at him, the weight of his decision sinking in. "You'd do that for me." "For the truth," he corrected, but his eyes softened. "And maybe a little for you." The moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Ava broke the silence, reaching for the wine. "Then let's drink to it. One last night before we blow everything up." They poured the wine, clinking glasses over the pizza box. The conversation shifted lighter now. Stories of her early days at the Tribune, his as a cub reporter in St. Louis. Ava saw him not as a tycoon or a target for the first time, but as a man. The wine warmed her, loosening the knots of distrust. When he laughed at her story about a botched stakeout, she felt a spark, a connection she hadn't expected. As the night wore on, Daniel leaned closer, his voice soft. "You're not what I expected, Ava. You're real." She smiled, a rare vulnerability creeping in. "Please don't get used to it. I'm still writing that story." He chuckled, his hand brushing hers. "I know, and I'm glad it's you." The moment lingered, their fingers touching the city's hum, fading into the background. Ava felt the pull of something deeper, something beyond the story. She didn't name it yet, but it was there, simmering. The next morning, Ava sent the article to her professor, who promised a front-page slot in the Sun-Times. Daniel made good on his word. canceling the streaming deal with a public statement. Walsh Media prioritizes integrity over profit. The move cost him millions, but it bought him credibility. X buzzed with reactions, some calling it noble, others a desperate PR stunt. Ava spent the day tying up loose ends, confirming the forensics report and Lena's financial ties to Sophia. She confronted Lena at a park away from the Tribune's eyes. Lena's defiance crumbled when Ava showed her the emails. "I needed the money." Lena admitted, her voice breaking. Sophia offered a way out. "I didn't mean for you to get hurt. You sold me out," Ava said, her tone cold. "And you sold the Tribune." "Why?" Lena looked away, her hands trembling. "Sophia had dirt on my brother, debts, bad deals. She'd ruin him if I didn't help." Ava nodded, her anger tempered by pity. "You're done, Lena. The story's out and you're in it." Lena's eyes welled up, but Ava walked away. The truth was her priority, not sympathy. She called Daniel, updating him on Lena's confession. "We've got her," she said. "Sophia's next." Daniel's voice was steady, but strained. "Good. My board's furious, but they're backing me. The articles are shot to end this." That evening, Ava returned to her apartment, the pizza box still on the table, a reminder of the night before. She opened her laptop, drafting a follow-up piece, her fingers flying. The wine, the laughter, and Daniel's touch all lingered, but she pushed them aside. The story came first. As she hit save, her phone buzzed a text from Daniel: "Dinner tomorrow. Just us. No notebooks." Ava smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. She typed back, "Maybe. Let's survive this first." The Sun-Times ran the article the next day, a bombshell that named Sophia, Lena, and Tom Reed. It detailed the deepfake, the Herald scandal, and Daniel's sacrifice. The fallout was immediate. Sophia's company denied, but the evidence was airtight. Lena resigned from the Tribune, and Tom was fired from Walsh Media. Ava's phone buzzed with a call from Mark. "You're back, Ava. The board wants you in tomorrow." She hung up, a smile tugging at her lips. The truth had won, but the night with Daniel, the pizza, the wine, the spark felt like a victory too. For the first time, she let herself wonder what came next. The Chicago skyline shimmered under a crisp autumn sun, but Ava Bennett felt the weight of the city's pulse as she stepped into the Tribune's newsroom. Her suspension was lifted, her desk reclaimed, but the air was tense. The Sun-Times article she and Daniel Walsh had crafted, a searing exposé of Sophia Grant's deepfake video, Lena Carter's betrayal, and Tom Reed's collusion, had shaken the media world. X was ablaze with reactions, hashtags like @TruthUncovered and #WalshVindicated, alongside vitriolic debates about Sophia's downfall. Ava's name was back in the spotlight, her credibility restored, but the victory was bittersweet. Sophia's warning at the pier. "The truth has more layers than you think," lingered like a shadow. The newsroom buzzed with cautious congratulations. Colleagues nodded as Ava passed, their whispers a mix of awe and wariness. Mark, her editor, met her at her desk, his tie askew, but his grin genuine. "You did it, Ava. The board's eating crow and advertisers are back on board. Welcome back." Ava set down her notebook, her expression guarded. "Thanks, Mark, but this isn't over. Sophia's not done, and I need to know what she meant by more layers." Mark's grin faded. "You're sure you just won? Let it rest." She shook her head, her resolve unshaken. "Not yet. Someone's still out there pulling strings. I can feel it." She spent the morning sifting through the fallout. The Sun-Times piece had detailed Sophia's manipulation of the video, Lena's financial ties to Grant Media, and Tom's leaked emails. Sophia's company was in damage control, issuing denials that crumbled under the forensics report's weight. Lena had resigned, her career in tatters, and Tom faced legal scrutiny at Walsh Media. Daniel's confession about the Daily Herald had humanized him, softening the public's view. but his company's stock was still shaky. Ava's inbox overflowed with interview requests, but she ignored them. The story wasn't finished. She met Daniel at a quiet cafe near Millennium Park, its windows framing the city's bustle. He looked lighter than he had in weeks, his posture relaxed, though his eyes still carried the weight of the scandal. "You saw the numbers," he said, sliding into the booth. "Stock's up 2 points. Your article saved us." Ava sipped her coffee, her notebook open. "It wasn't about saving you, Daniel. It was about the truth. But we're not done." Sophia's warning. What did she mean? He leaned back, his fingers drumming the table. "She's cornered, Ava. Cornered animals lash out. My team's digging into her financials. There's chatter about a bigger player, someone bankrolling her. Maybe that's what she meant." Ava scribbled a note, her mind racing. "A bigger player. Like who?" "No names yet," he said. "But my execs found offshore accounts linked to her company, not mine. If we trace them, we might see her puppet master." Ava nodded, her instincts flaring. Sophia's desperation suggested she wasn't the mastermind, just a well-funded pawn. "I'll check my sources," she said. "If there's a bigger fish, I'll find them." They spent the next hour strategizing. Daniel would lean on his financial team to track the offshore accounts, while Ava would tap her Tribune contacts for dirt on Sophia's allies. Their alliance, born of necessity, had grown into something solid: trust, not blind, but earned. Daniel's hand brushed hers as they parted, a fleeting gesture that sent a spark through her. "We make a good team, Ava," he said, his voice soft. She smiled, but her focus stayed sharp. "Don't get cocky. We've got work to do." Back at the Tribune, Ava dove into her research. She pulled up Sophia's corporate filings, cross-referencing them with Daniel's team's flagged offshore accounts. A pattern emerged. Payments funneled through a shell company in Panama, linked to a shadowy investment group. The group's name, Orion Ventures, was unfamiliar, but its board included names tied to political lobbying. Ava's pulse quickened. This was bigger than Sophia, bigger than Walsh Media. She called her forensics contact, who confirmed the offshore accounts were active, moving millions in the past year. "It's dirty money," the contact said, "but you'll need more to pin it down. Be careful, Ava. These guys don't play nice." Her phone buzzed as she hung up a text from an unknown number. "You didn't listen, last chance." The threat was blunt, chilling. Ava screenshot it and added it to her encrypted drive. She wasn't backing down, but the stakes were climbing. That afternoon, news broke. Sophia Grant had been arrested. The charge was fraud tied to the deepfake video and financial misconduct at Grant Media. Ava watched the newsroom coverage from her desk, the TV blaring. Sophia's mugshot flashed across the screen, her expression defiant. As police led her away, she shouted to the cameras, "This isn't over. The truth has more layers than you think." Ava's stomach twisted. Sophia's words were a taunt, a clue. She texted Daniel, "Sophia's arrested, but she's hinting at something bigger. We need to meet." They met that evening at a rooftop bar, the city sprawling below. Daniel looked grim, his phone buzzing with updates from his team. He said Sophia's arrest is a win, but she's not the endgame. Orion Ventures. Those offshore accounts, they're tied to a lobbying firm with ties to DC. This goes deep, Ava. She nodded, her notebook open. Then we keep digging. The article cleared your name, but if there's a bigger player, we expose them too. Daniel leaned closer, his voice low. You're back at the Tribune now. You don't have to do this. You've won. Ava met his gaze, unflinching. I'm a journalist, Daniel. I don't stop when it's convenient. I stop when the truth is out. He smiled, a spark of admiration in his eyes. Then I'm with you all the way. The The Tribune reinstated Ava formally the next day, her desk a beacon of triumph. But Sophia's warning echoed a reminder that the story wasn't over. Ava spent the night at her apartment, her laptop glowing with new leads on Orion Ventures. The truth was close, but it was dangerous. She was ready to chase it no matter the cost. The Chicago Cultural Center's Grand Hall glowed under chandeliers, its marble floors echoing with the chatter of media elites, journalists, and city officials. Ava Bennett stood near the stage, her notebook tucked away for once, her dress a sleek contrast to the newsroom's usual chaos. The event was the launch of her and Daniel Walsh's book, Truth in the Crossfire. A detailed account of their investigation into Sophia Grant's conspiracy and the shadowy forces behind it. The book had already sparked buzz, its pre-release excerpts, dominating X, and reigniting debates about media ethics. Ava felt the weight of every eye on her, but she stood tall, her resolve unshaken. Daniel was at her side, his suit tailored, but his demeanor relaxed. A far cry from the embattled tycoon she'd first met. Their exposé had cleared his name and rebuilt his reputation, with Walsh Media's stock recovering and his foundation's charity work earning praise. Sophia's arrest had been a turning point, her fraud charges sticking through her cryptic warning. The truth has more layers still gnawed at Ava. Orion Ventures. The shadowy group tied to Sophia's offshore accounts remained elusive, a loose thread Ava hadn't fully unraveled. The crowd hushed as Daniel took the stage, his voice steady as he introduced the book. He said, "This isn't just a story about scandal," his eyes scanning the room. "It's about trust between journalists, between companies, between people." Ava Bennett showed me what that means. She didn't just write the truth. She fought for it. The applause was warm, but Ava's focus was on Daniel. His words carried a sincerity she'd come to recognize, a shift from the guarded tycoon to a man who'd bared his flaws. She joined him on stage, her voice clear as she spoke. "This book is for every journalist who's ever been silenced, every truth buried under power. We wrote it to remind you the fight's worth it." The crowd erupted their cheers, a validation of months of risk. As Ava stepped off the stage, Daniel caught her arm, his touch gentle but firm. "One more thing," he said, his voice low enough for only her to hear. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. The room fell silent, sensing something monumental. He opened the box, revealing a silver ring, engraved with a single word, truth. Ava's breath caught as he dropped to one knee, his eyes locked on hers. "Ava Bennett," he said, his voice steady, but thick with emotion. "You've challenged me, changed me, and shown me what matters. I want to face every truth with you, good, bad, and messy. Will you marry me?" The room held its breath, every eye on Ava. Her heart raced, the weight of the moment pressing against her. She'd spent months distrusting him, peeling back his layers. But the man before her was no longer just a story. He was Daniel, flawed, fierce, and hers. She smiled, her voice soft but clear. "Yes." The crowd roared, cameras flashing as Daniel slid the ring onto her finger. They embraced, the world fading to a hum. Ava let herself feel the spark that had grown between them for the first time through pizza nights, late-night drafts, and shared battles. It wasn't just love. It was trust, hard-won and unshakable. After the event, they slipped away to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The skyline glittered, a testament to their victory and the challenges ahead. Ava leaned against the railing, the ring catching the light. "You planned this," she said, her tone teasing. "Big romantic gesture at a book launch. Very on brand." Daniel laughed, his arm brushing hers. "Had to make it memorable." "But I meant every word, Ava. You're my partner in every sense." She turned to him, her eyes searching his. "Even when I'm chasing the next story. Because I'm not done, Daniel. Orion Ventures is still out there. Sophia's warning. He nodded, his expression serious. I know. And I'm with you. We'll find them together. They stood in silence, the city's pulse a steady rhythm. Ava felt a peace she hadn't known in months, but it was fleeting. As they returned to the event, her phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. Orion's watching. You won't see the next layer coming. Ava's grip tightened on the phone, but she didn't show it to Daniel. Not yet. She slipped it into her pocket, her smile steady as she took his hand. The threat was real, but so was their bond. She'd face the next scandal, the next truth with him at her side. The night ended with toasts and laughter, the book's launch a triumph. Ava and Daniel left their fingers intertwined, the city sprawling before them. The future was uncertain, but they had each other for now, and the truth. Ava glanced at the ring, its engraving, a reminder: truth. It was their promise, their fight, their love.